Steven Yeun plays a completely delusional character in Nope who goes by the name of Jupe. Jupe's delusion is a belief that he has struck up a kind of friendship with Jean Jacket, who is of course the monster of the movie. Jean Jacket visits his property at a designated time every week, and there he offers it a horse as an evening meal. And as a result of the regularity of this exchange, Jupe has gotten the idea that the two of them have a kind of gentleman's agreement. He even sort of thinks he's saving the world through the maintenance of this relationship. Jean Jacket agrees not to rampage in other parts of the Earth and human society because it likes Jupe and it is satisfied with his offerings. That's the story that Jupe would share with an audience at his Western-inspired theme park when he decided to make his weekly offering the centerpiece of a new show. He wanted to share his relationship to Jean Jacket with the rest of the world, and in the process he sought to present himself as a kind of chosen one, whose destined gift is to make peace with a dangerous god. But only moments after Jupe would share this delusional story with his audience, Jean Jacket would arrive, but instead of accepting its normal weekly horse, it would go off script. And it would unceremoniously devour everyone in the show, including the children, together with Jupe. But here's a question. What could have made Jupe so insane as to set up this entire scenario? How could he have actually believed that he had formed a friendship with a giant flying saucer that swallows large mammals whole, and that had never offered any sort of direct communication? I think the seed of Jupe's delusional fantasy had been planted during a traumatic event of his childhood, when he was acting on the set of a 90s sitcom called Gordy. In the fictional story of this sitcom, Gordy was the name of an animal character. It was a chimpanzee who had been adopted into a suburban family, where it lived as sort of a sibling to Jupe's character. One day during filming, the chimpanzee went berserk, and it started brutally attacking the actors to the point of disfigurement and sometimes death. But there was one human actor that the chimpanzee spared, and that was Jupe. It did approach him toward the end of its rampage, but instead of attacking, it strangely and calmly offered Jupe its hand, and the young Jupe interpreted this as a gesture of friendship. He thought that it was asking for a fist bump, and so Jupe cautiously offered his hand in return. But before they could make physical contact and consolidate their friendship, the chimpanzee was shot, and that was the end of the Gordy sitcom. But of course, Jupe was never actually Gordy's friend. He really just got lucky that he didn't trigger the animal's rage. But that was something Jupe would never understand, because he didn't respect or care about Gordy's animal nature. And instead he interpreted this crisis through a self-centered lens. He decided that the chimpanzee spared him because he was nature's special boy who was immune to the terrifying dangers of extra-human life. And that delusion would survive all the way into Jupe's adulthood, and it would shape his fateful encounter with Jean Jacket. When Jean Jacket initially spared his life, he thought that this was merely a repetition of the miracle with Gordy. He thought that Jean Jacket was essentially extending its hand to him in the same way that Gordy once did. And in a way, Jupe was right about that. Both of them did initially spare him for the same reason. But it wasn't because they liked him, and it wasn't because he was special. It was only because he got lucky that he didn't trigger the violence that lives within them. And that was something that Jupe refused to understand.